Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Freckles and Blondie. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Randi.
And today we are discussing episode 11 of Lost, All the Best Cowboys Have Daddy Issues. This episode aired December 8th, 2005. It was directed by Stephen Williams and written by... Alright, I wrote down like how to pronounce this.
Oh, good, good.
Just because it was conveniently located next to his name. Okay, Javier Grillo Marxwatch?
Okay.
We're gonna go with that.
I definitely
that's right.
said that wrong before, but good for you.
I don't remember what you said.
It wasn't that.
It's definitely not an intuitive name.
Yeah.
But he also wrote House of the Rising Sun, and he will continue to write 5 additional episodes of Lost in the future.
Yeah, so it's probably a good idea that we know how to say his name correctly.
Yes, we need to start practicing at night. So, this is our second episode of Jack. It's like the first time that we've had a repeat character.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel? No, I'm making you go first.
Oh, jeez, okay. Well, here's the thing. I approached this episode a little bit hesitantly because you had texted me before I watched it saying how much you did not enjoy it. So I was like, oh God, am I not remembering something here? But I really, really liked it. It's a really good episode. It's intense. Like, the ending is so emotional. We don't necessarily learn anything new about Jack, but I feel like it is illuminating. So I really like it. But how do you feel about it, Tiffany?
I don't know what you're talking about, Reggie. So it's not that I really dislike the episode as a whole. I don't love this episode. It's Jack infuriates me in this episode. Like this, this is the perfect thing for me to point to when people are like, why don't you like Jack? It's this stuff. The stuff he does in this episode just drives me crazy.
Okay.
I like, the flashbacks.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. I do wish that they kind of connected more to what's happening on the island.
Yeah, me too. There are times when it flashes from him in the flashbacks to what he's doing on the island, and I'm like, what is the connection here? Are we, you know what I mean? It's strange.
Right. That's kind of why, one of the other things that I told you before we were recording this was that I was having a hard time with the theme and what to pull from this. And that was part of why it was hard, was because I couldn't connect his backstory to what he was dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like usually Lost connects those in such a beautiful way, and they're just totally disjointed.
Yeah, it made me feel like I was missing something when I watched it because I couldn't make that significant connection. But
Right. Which is exactly how I felt in White Rabbit. Do you remember I had to go back and rewatch the whole episode?
Yeah.
Because I was determined that there had to be some sort of theme there, but I couldn't find it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I thought that one I got a little bit more, but yeah, this one was a little hard.
yeah, I think it was definitely a sharper contrast in this episode.
Yeah, I will say that I don't like everything Jack does in this episode, but I do find it relatable. I understand where he's coming from.
Maybe that's kind of the heart of why you like Jack. You seem to find him relatable.
I do. I really do. And I'm really noticing that this time around when we're watching it, because I think if you had asked me the first time I was watching Lost, I would have been like, oh, he's great, and Jack and Kate are great, so Jack's great. But yeah, I find him really relatable as just a human being. I don't know.
Right. That makes me a little sad because I really like you.
Whoa, wow.
So why? I don't understand.
Oh, God.
Why don't I like Jack more? You don't act this way, though, so.
Thank you, I
just mean, as much as you may relate to him, I don't perceive you as super Jack-like, though everyone's got complications, and you don't have to relate to all of him to relate to him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we lived together, maybe you would see it, but we did live together for years.
I know,
so.
geez. for years.
Yeah, we did. I don't know. That's funny.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get into it, and maybe you will light my way into to enjoying it a little more.
I'm going to do my very best.
If anyone can do it, Randi, it'll be you. I have faith.
Cool.
Previously on Lost, Charlie promised Claire that he would protect her when he really shouldn't have done that. Then Hurley found out that Ethan wasn't on the plane. The episode opens with a lot of, oh my god, Ethan wasn't on the plane talk. Hurley, Jack, Kate, and Locke conclude that he's heading towards Claire and Charlie on the path back to the beach. Locke and Jack bolt towards them, but instead they find Claire's bag, and Locke deduces that there are 3 sets of footprints, and after a struggle, they were taken. Jack begins screaming their names, but Locke shushes him as we cut to the title sequence. It's like such a breathless beginning.
That's a good word for it. It is very breathless.
It picks up like directly where the other episode left off. I don't feel like any other episode has done that so far.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like when I was watching this opening scene, and Jack mentions this, I don't know if in this scene or the next scene, but I'm just thinking, how could Ethan, first of all, overpower both Charlie and Claire, which I guess is kind of more plausible since Claire's like 9 months pregnant and Charlie's, short and small. But how could he drag both of them through the jungle? Like, did he tie them up with rope? I want to know what that situation looked like. Because it sounds crazy.
It does sound crazy. I totally agree.
Like, 2 people. He's only one guy. That's...
Baby, he's not only one guy.
Oh, good point. Good point.
Or he has some crafty rope and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Locke does say later that he's been hunting with him and Ethan is a very capable guy. So, if Locke thinks he's capable, that seems like a high compliment.
Yeah. I mean, he must be... I mean, they make him seem so... He's so scary in this episode. He's just so tall and massive. And just... I just keep thinking about when, Jack and Kate and Locke and Boone are tracking them to the jungle, that Ethan's like just ahead of them, dragging 2 people. Like, I'm like, what? Who is this guy?
That's true. We're just going to assume that it's harder to follow someone than it is to go somewhere, assuming that Ethan knows where he's going.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, he's obviously been on this island for who knows how long, so, yeah.
Right. Following the tracks, Jack says, "This doesn't make much sense, because one man couldn't drag 2 people. Locke says, how he did it doesn't matter. Why he did it does. Locke wants them to gather a search party and make a plan. He says they need help and information to know what really happened. Maybe it was the others who Saeed referenced before he passed out. But Jack seems irritated and says he has plenty of information. He tells Locke to show him the direction that they went, and Jack begins to run through the jungle. It just bothers me that he's not smart about this.
Yeah, that's true.
'Cause he should be. I understand that he's emotional and he's like, oh no, my friends are in danger. But Locke knows what he's doing, and I feel like he has a good plan. Roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why Jack is so frantic. Like, I understand the thought that if they go back and form a search party, then that's just giving Ethan more time to get away. And maybe he's thinking that, if they hurry up right now, they can catch him. So I get it, but I mean, you're right. It's not smart.
I just don't know what he's thinking, because he can't track people. So why would he just dart off in the jungle? Where does he think he's gonna go?
I feel like he's not thinking rationally about that part. I feel like his whole motivation throughout this episode is that he feels so guilty. Like, he feels responsible, which, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but...
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, this is just his emotions overrunning his judgment.
Yeah, it's not smart.
We cut to a flashback of Jack operating in surgery. The patient flatlines, and Jack desperately tries to save her while everyone else in the room watches, knowing that it's hopeless. His father tells him to call it. It's over. Jack looks at his father and says, "You call it."
All I wrote down for that is Parents and their children should not work together. That's never a good idea. You know, I'm sure there are exceptions to that rule, but
yeah.
No.
but yeah, even if you're going to be a doctor, don't work in the same hospital.
Right. Don't work directly under your father. I mean, even if they had a great relationship, which they clearly do not.
Which they super do not.
Yeah. Don't do that. It's not healthy.
That's a very good point. Locke is back at the cave, forming a search party. Kate joins in, of course, and so does Boone, much to Shannon's dismay. Walt is super adorable and eager to help. He wants to take Vincent to smell them out. Michael says no, and then immediately tells Locke he wants to join the rescue party. But then Locke turns the table and tells Michael no, because Locke is Team Walt all the way. When Michael says that he'll just form his own search party, Locke tells him, great, he's heading north and they should head south. I really enjoyed this scene.
Okay.
I felt like Locke was trying to keep Michael and Walt out of danger and keep Michael with Walt.
Oh, really? Okay.
What did you think?
I don't know. Michael, I'm trying not to just hate everything Michael does because
it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. One, knowing what comes later for him, and two, he's pretty much like the most hated character in Lost. So I'm really trying not to do that with him, but just his whole attitude when he's talking to Locke here, it's like, find something useful to do. Don't just go up to Locke and say, hey, like, we don't want to just sit around here. Like, Locke's getting ready to go off. Like, he doesn't have time to sit you down and come up with a plan for what you can do to help the situation. You know, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. I just find it so interesting that Walt wants to help so badly and Michael's like, no, you can't help. And then he cannot handle it when Locke tells him he can't help.
That's a good point.
It's just, he's being so childish, and I feel like Walt handled it so well.
Yeah, I feel like Walt comes off very mature in this episode, and Michael doesn't.
Yeah, he definitely does not. But, yeah, I mean, I thought Locke was just trying to keep them safe in some way.
That's a good point, maybe. I just thought he was taking Michael seriously. Like, when he gave him that suggestion, it's like, oh, cool. You definitely goes that. Like, he didn't pick up the fact that Michael was, like, a little pissed off.
Yeah, I didn't think he was being serious at all.
Really?
No, because I thought he was thinking, they're definitely not south, so I'll let Michael and Walt go south.
No, you're probably right. Locke's smarter than that. Oh, that's a really good point.
And he's got a buddy thing going on with Walt. Like, I feel like he's protective of him.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So he wouldn't let Walt go somewhere that he thought was dangerous. I mean, he thinks this whole thing is dangerous enough to leave a trail for Boone to follow back if something happens to him.
Mm-hmm.
So
I found it interesting that Boone volunteered to go in this trip.
Yeah. I feel like Boone has been eager to help most of the time. He's just been getting in the way most of the time.
That's a good point.
Like, he's been trying to help, but doing it poorly.
Like, doing it wrong, completely wrong each time. So, yeah.
Yes, usually making things much, much worse. But it doesn't surprise me for him to volunteer, and it doesn't surprise me that Locke would allow him to come either, because I feel like he looks at Boone and Kate as, like, people who can kind of take care of themselves, more or less. Well, maybe not Boone. I don't know.
No, I can see that.
Nix that.
That makes more sense, because when he volunteered, I was thinking, is he just doing this to, spite Shannon? Because they had this kind of childish, selfish, sibling relationship. But,
yeah.
He does volunteer for a lot of stuff, so.
I always think about him in the pilot when he's not too awful yet, and he's just trying to help Jack, and he brings him like 18 pins.
Yeah. Oh, God. Poor Boone.
They should have run with that Boone, not like water stealing, punching people Boone.
Yeah.
That's not as cool. Jack is running through the jungle, and I think it has just occurred to him that he is not much of a tracker. He looks around, looking very confused, and we cut to a flashback. Back in the OR, over the body of the dead patient, Jack looks sad, and Christian walks in, saying that Jack barged into the OR to work on his patient, They had called Christian to come save her, not Jack. But Jack says a nurse came to get him because Christian's hands were shaking. Apparently, Christian made a mistake when operating on this woman, and according to Jack, it cost her her life. Christian asks, if I was at a restaurant and you were just upstairs, why would they call me instead of you? Jack asks how many drinks his father had at lunch, and Christian looks very unhappy. Shots are fired like all around here.
Yes, absolutely.
This is like intense. I can't imagine speaking to my dad this way or vice versa.
Yeah, same. It's just, first of all, I feel like, I don't know if we got this confirmation in his, well, yeah, we did. I was going to say it's the first time we get confirmation that his dad's like an alcoholic, but they definitely touched on that in White Rabbit.
Yeah.
But it just made me think that, I mean, Jack has been taking his father's like emotional abuse since he was a kid. And has watched him drink and be an alcoholic since he was a kid. Like, that's so, I mean, that's terrible. I don't know.
It's very terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they have such a toxic relationship. It's very sad.
Yeah.
And it must be really awkward to work with the two of them.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
I would not want to be a nurse in that room.
No, that sounds like a nightmare.
So, are we supposed to take that Jack is not a very good surgeon from this? Because when Christian says, why would they call me at a restaurant instead of you who are just upstairs? I was like, why would they do that?
I feel like, and I could be making this up, but I think, isn't his dad the chief of surgery? And I don't think Jack has risen that high yet as far as ranks in the hospital go.
I don't know. That makes sense just because of age.
Yeah, I think it was mostly because his dad's older and has so much more experience. So obviously they would defer to him first.
Right. And another reason could just be that Christian is scarier to deal with. So, I don't know, you might want to not step on his pride.
Right, because I feel like that's a big deal in hospitals. I'm just realizing now all my knowledge of how hospitals work is from Grey's Anatomy, so this could be completely wrong. But, you know, in those type of shows, like the chief of surgery, which I think that's what Jack's dad is, the chief of surgery, like, runs the whole surgery unit. Like, you come to them for decisions. They decide who's on what surgery. Like, they make all the decisions. And anyone who steps over that, it's, like, a really big deal. So maybe that's how this works?
Maybe. Or maybe Jack is not as good as him, which would be, like, understandable because he doesn't have as much experience.
Right. Right. I mean, we don't know when these flashbacks are happening. Maybe they were a few years ago and Jack was like really just starting out because you have to go through so much schooling before you even get to do surgeries, right? That's how that works, right? I don't know.
I get the sense from this episode and last episode that Christian doesn't think he is being unjustified when he says these kind of things to Jack. I feel like he thinks that he is completely correct.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter that that's going to like hurt his feelings or upset him. So he just says it. So I can just see him tossing out a comment like that would totally drive Jack crazy. But Christian's thinking, well, I'm right. And maybe this will make him better.
Right. Exactly. It's like the conversation they had in White Rabbit when Jack was 12. And he was telling him about, you know, the boy he had operated on that day. Like, he was talking to an adult and not his 12-year-old son.
Right. At least now he's an adult.
Yeah, I guess.
Locke and his search party have caught up to Jack. He tells him it was a good thing that he was running around in circles because it made him easy to find. Jack is just taking it from everybody right now.
Yep.
Locke wants Jack to go back to the cave and to take care of Saeed's injury, but Jack doesn't want to. Locke responds that this was his own fault for never noticing that Ethan wasn't who he said he was, and after all their time hunting together, he knows he's an experienced hunter and tracker and could be dangerous. The island's only doctor shouldn't be risking himself. Locke says, go back, be the doctor, let me be the hunter. Jack refuses, and Kate looks on worried.
Yeah, I mean, Jack was never going to go back. That was never going to happen, you know?
No, it was never going to happen, but I agree with Locke's, like, line of thought there. Mm-hmm. You're the only guy who can take care of people when they get hurt. You should not get hurt yourself.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Especially when, you know, Locke is Mr. Hunter guy. Like, this is his thing. Like, let him do it.
Right. And I feel like maybe Jack would have gone back, but he just feels so guilty about, you know, the fact that he didn't believe Claire.
I think that's definitely his motivating factor, but I don't think he would have gone back, even if he didn't feel guilty.
You don't think so? Maybe not.
He's just very stubborn.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I don't think he would have. I feel like once he decides he's doing something, it's impossible to change his mind.
You know who's also very stubborn is Kate. Why? They're so... Anyway, that's a side story. But yeah, I mean, I guess he's also, you know, he feels like he's the leader. So he probably feels obligated to go and at least try and help.
Well, he shouldn't, because a leader should delegate. That's what being a good leader does.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he never wanted this job, but it's true. He should delegate.
I find it interesting that Locke feels guilty for this incident too.
Yeah, that was interesting.
They both have sort of similar motivations here, but they're both handling it really differently.
Right. Everyone just feels so guilty in this episode.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well, they should. Just listen to Claire next time, okay, guys?
Right.
Jesus. She told you exactly what was happening.
She sure did. Oh, God.
Back at the caves, Michael is feeling the sting of Locke's rejection, and he is ranting to Hurley about it. Michael is sick of being treated like a second-class citizen. You know, kind of like how he's treating Walt. All because Locke knows how to hunt boar. Walt chimes in Locke's defense, saying Locke knows a lot more than how to hunt boar. He says, Mr. Locke is a warrior, and if it was me, I would listen to him. And Walt is so, like, badass when he says this to Michael.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
It is so cute. I love the actor who plays Walt. His name is Malcolm David Kelly. He does a great job in this episode with the few scenes he gets.
He does. Giving a good name to child actors everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. And it can't have been easy because he's acting against all adults, you know? So.
Yeah. Michael says, I don't want you to go, Walt. Stay with Hurley. Michael looks offended by Walt's admiration of Locke and says he's no warrior, but he's heading south.
Oh, Michael.
I know. I feel like he just makes us sigh. Ugh.
Yeah.
Michael.
I mean, it's just, it's so selfish. Like,
get it together, dude.
Yeah, like he's sitting there and he's like, oh, you know, what about me? I don't just want to sit around doing nothing. Poor me. It's like Charlie and Claire could be dead. Stop complaining to Hurley. Stop wasting time. It's just very annoying.
I know. I wish he would just go work on his plumbing stuff.
Right. Find what you're good at and do that.
Exactly. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Locke is tying red fabric around trees as they walk so that there's a trail leading them back to camp. Boone says Locke could just lead them back, but Locke is worried that something could happen to him and he wants to be prepared. Basically, Locke is the best Boy Scout. Jack and Kate catch up, and Jack seems annoyed that Locke has lost the trail. Locke says it's time to take a break and regain some mental clarity. Jack does not want to, saying it's almost 4 o'clock. Locke says it's 4:25 because he's Locke and he already knows that.
Of course.
He looked at the sun and he knew.
Yeah, to the minute.
They are taking a break. Jack looks very angry, but Kate pulls him away before Jack starts punching people again.
Okay, I don't think he was going to do that, but...
He looks like he's going to boil over. He is so mad.
Yeah, he's very agitated.
I feel like he can't handle not being in control. Like, Locke is the one who knows where they're going right now, and so, like, Jack can't just go on ahead when he wants to, and it's just, like, frustrating.
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, he just feels so, everything that he does in this episode is because he feels so guilty. Like, I feel like he wouldn't be trying, he's just like, in his head, he's like, we gotta go, I've gotta fix this thing, this is all my fault. And it's like clouding all of his judgment, and he's like snapping at people, and it's just because he feels so guilty about, he feels like this is his fault that Claire and Charlie got taken.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I agree. I think both of those things kind of go into it. I don't think he likes Locke leading him. Jack would much rather go faster and not take a break. And it's just, I don't think he likes feeling this.
You don't think he likes the character of Locke specifically leading him, or just anyone being in charge?
Right now I feel like anyone. I just feel like he feels, held back right now. And he just wants to go charging through the jungle, you know?
Yeah. I feel like it's all coming from a place of good. Like, he has good intentions. He wants to save Charlie and Claire, but it's not coming off that way. He's going about this the wrong way. Which
Kate kind of brings up in the next scene.
Yeah.
Kate tells Jack he needs to give Locke some space, but Jack doesn't want to. She's frustrated and tells him to stop. What's going on? It turns out that Jack is freaking out because he was wrong about Claire. She told him she was being attacked, but he didn't believe her. So yeah, I usually think with Jack that even when he's being like this, which is super annoying to me, like all the way he's acting this whole episode is just frustrating. Mm-hmm. I do think it is rooted in wanting to help and like protect these people and do the right thing. I just don't like the way he handles it.
Yeah, it's not great.
I mean, Kate seems pretty annoyed too. So I feel a little validated because she's like, dude, you need to chill.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right. It's just, I don't know. I feel like I was saying earlier, I find him relatable. I feel like I get this way when I feel guilty about something. Mm-hmm. And I just tend to just shut people off and don't talk to anyone and just become really agitated and touchy. Yeah. Like, the more guilty I feel about something, the more I do that. And it's such a bad habit and a bad character trait. But when Jack is doing this, I'm like, oh, I get this. Like, I do this and it's not good, but I get it. You know?
Wow. This is so fascinating. This is such like interesting insight into why you've loved Jack all these years.
Is it?
I've never connected you with Jack before. So it's just really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about this episode, I understand him. Like, I don't like everything he does, but
sure,
I get it.
I mean, when you see like your own flaws reflected in someone else, I feel like that creates sort of a connection.
Yeah, exactly.
This is so fascinating. I'm learning so much about you, and I thought I already knew you.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but okay.
Locke has found one of the bandages Charlie wraps around his fingers, so off they go. Finding another one, Locke points out that there are actually 2 trails now. Jack wants to follow the bandages because Charlie must be leaving them, but Kate thinks it could be a dummy trail meant to throw them off. Everyone seems completely shocked that Kate has a good idea, and suddenly this makes her a tracker. Jack decides that they should split up and Kate can lead the other party. Locke tells them to be careful as he and Boone set off on the other trail. So this thing is Kate, I find a little weird.
Oh, the fact that she's all of a sudden a tracker now.
That her saying it could be a dummy trail makes her a tracker.
Yeah, that's
because
a good point.
I feel like I would have thought of that too. And I could not track someone through the woods.
That's a good point. Isn't it also a little weird that she's just now bringing this up when this has got to be her 6th hike into the jungle?
Right?
Like, she's been with Locke, she's been with other groups, and all of a sudden she's like, hey, I can do this too. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, it's like she doesn't even volunteer that, really. Jack is the one who says, like, oh, look, she's a tracker too.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, like, resist it, really, but I don't know. Kate's always kind of, less forward about what she knows and doesn't know.
Yeah, that's true.
So I can see her having this skill and not having told anybody about it, for sure. It just seems so weird. It was a weird way to reveal that skill. There were better ways to do it. If she had seen, like, a broken branch and been like, oh, here, look over here, they would have been like, oh, Kate can do this, you know?
Yeah, that would have made more sense.
That would have been such a simple thing to do.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and I feel like Jack he wanted her to be a tracker. So he could,
Probably.
get away from Locke and go and take control. So he was like, yes,
Right.
Kate, you're our tracker now.
That's probably much more likely what happened.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that she actually did have some skills.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, worked out. Walt has found Sawyer and has updated him on all the goings-on. Sawyer has no recollection of Ethan at all, but tells Walt that he could just be missing from the manifest because he lied about his name. Walt says it's dumb to lie about your name. He thinks Ethan was here before the plane crash. Sawyer seems skeptical, and Walt tells him to ask Saeed. Sawyer does not seem thrilled to find out that Saeed is back. This begs the question, does Hurley now know Sawyer's real name?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because that's what should be on the manifest, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have that in this, at this point in the story, do we? We don't know Sawyer's real name.
No, they haven't said it yet.
We just know that it's not Sawyer.
Right. Ooh, maybe Hurley and Sawyer had a side conversation where Sawyer's like, yeah, this is my real name, but don't tell anyone else or I'll kill you or something like that.
Right. They had to have, or else Hurley would have been like, hey, where are you?
Yeah. Good point. Oh, wow. I never thought of that before.
I hadn't thought about that either, and I can't believe I never did. I mean,
yeah,
this whole conversation is just screaming. They're talking about lying about your name.
Right. It's just a direct nod to Sawyer's episode. Yeah, I like this theme between the two of them. I like Sawyer's he's just such a carefree attitude. He doesn't seem to find the fact that Claire and Charlie were taken by someone who was on this island concerning at all. He's just
no,
just going about my day.
He's like, sure, yeah, and there was a polar bear too.
Right.
All right.
Bye. It's so funny.
And I always, in the episode before when Sawyer and Hurley were talking, and I really liked that contrast. I like the contrast with him and Walt.
Yeah.
Him and somebody who is just, very innocent is always just really funny.
Yeah, he needs to have more conversations with kids. It's cute.
Boone comments on the red fabric they're tying to trees, saying that in Star Trek, the guys in red shirts were always the ones who got killed. Locke says that they must have had a piss-poor captain. Boone asks what Locke does in the real world. When he finds out that Locke worked in a box company, he doesn't believe him. This is a sweet scene. This is the beginning of their kind of friendship. More like apprenticeship.
Yeah, I would call it that.
Yeah, I feel like Locke usually has a little apprentice following him around.
It seems kind of like a strange time to be bonding, but it's a nice scene, I guess.
Yeah.
They're so casual about it, but okay.
I like when he does not believe Locke that he worked at a box company. He's like, yeah, okay,
yeah,
sure.
That's a great moment.
Because that is what we're all feeling like, yeah, this makes no sense.
Of course. After he just, brought out all of his knives he bought on the plane.
Sure, yeah. Locke is a hunter, like he told Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Kate is desperately trying to rein in our flailing leader. She begs him to slow down so that she can look around more because she's not as good at this as Locke is. Jack looks annoyed and asks where she picked up her tracking skills before or after she was on the run. I feel like he's so trying to provoke her here.
Yeah, he's lashing out.
She says she's just trying to help. He says she could help by being honest. She tells him her dad was in the army and they would track deer together in the woods. She looks at him and asks if there's anything real that he wants to share. Since he's the one acting like a maniac. This is just so unfair.
How do we feel about this, Tiffany?
He's supposed to care about her, and he is just so mean. It's just so irritating.
Yeah.
She was just in the last episode telling him a lovely story about her and her mom standing on the beach, sinking in the sand. And he's like, why don't you try telling me something real for once?
Oh, can we please go back to that scene? Oh, I forgot about that.
I'm just so frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, it is very frustrating. I don't like this. I don't like this at all, but I do.
It's almost one thing if he's kind of being like this with Locke, you know, they're having kind of like a power struggle, but to like be so hard on Kate, who's just trying to help after he forced her into this tracker position, it just makes me mad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
Oh, no, please. I was just going to say, I really don't like this, but I feel like, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like it's not just the fact that it's Kate. Like, whoever he was with, he was going to lash out in this way. Like, he's just looking for something to pick at. He's feeling so guilty. I feel like in the back of his mind, he's like, I've got to pull out the faults of people around me so I don't feel as bad about myself as I do right now.
That's horribly selfish and awful.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not good. I feel like it's still coming from a good place. But yeah, it's terrible. And you can tell in his face, as soon as he says it and Kate starts talking, you can tell that he knows he went way too far.
Well, he should say that and be like, sorry, Kate, who's being nice to me.
Yeah, it's hard to apologize to people. I don't know. I feel like I would be doing the exact same thing in this situation. It's not a good trait, but I get it.
No, you wouldn't, Randi. You would not be acting like this.
I don't know about that.
You really wouldn't.
But when you feel guilty about something, what do you tend to do? Do you just apologize? Do you like close in on yourself? Do you lash out at people? Like,
when I'm feeling guilty, I definitely don't lash out at people if I'm guilty. I mean, I'm definitely an inward person where if I'm feeling bad in any way or upset, I just am quiet. Mm-hmm. And it's almost for this reason because I hate saying something that I might regret. So I just don't talk to people because I don't ever want to say something bad. It's very frustrating for my husband.
Yeah, that makes sense for you. I guess I'm also pretty quiet, but I tend to just keep things in and then they'll just explode outward after I've not talked about it for way too long. It's not very healthy.
If I explode, it's like I start crying. I don't like get mad and like yell at people. I never do that. I don't know. I just will like internally combust basically. But I think in this scene, it's Kate, you know? Like, I just want their relationship to mean something, and it just doesn't. So, I'm just frustrated that he's not treating her better.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. I'm not trying to defend him in this instance, really. Like, it's really bad. I really don't like it. I don't like the fact that it's with Kate. You know how I feel about them. But I understand it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to let him off the hook.
Yeah. No, I get it. I understand as well to a point. It's just so dramatic. It's hard to get completely on board. Even understanding that he feels guilty. It's too much. From my perspective, it's too much.
Yeah.
In a flashback, Jack and his dad are in Christian's office. Christian has written a report on what happened with the patient in the OR. He describes what he wrote, and Jack says again that he had no business being in the OR. Christian says he wouldn't have done it if he couldn't have handled it, but Jack disagrees and refuses to sign the report. Christian points out that it was under Jack's hand that the girl died. Christian says accidents happen in surgery all the time, but that if Jack contradicts him and mentions alcohol, nothing else will matter. The girl would have died anyway, so why lose his license over it? Jack doesn't seem to care about that. Christian realizes that Jack's gonna turn him in, so he switches tactics, apologizing for being so hard on him that he just wanted to mold a soft metal into steel, and that's why he's such a great surgeon now. He says in this career you have to make sacrifices for the greater good, and that's why he sacrifices parts of his relationship with Jack, so that he can save people. Jack is emotional as Christian promises Jack that what happened yesterday will never happen again. He hands his son the pen, telling him it's not just his career, it's his life. Jack signs the paper.
Oh, man.
Yeah, this is a great scene.
Yeah.
I enjoy this scene.
I do too.
There's a lot happening here.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me, like, while I was reading that, when Christian says that he will sacrifice parts of his relationship with Jack so that he can save people, I'm just thinking of this now, but Is that kind of how Jack is feeling with Kate right now? I'm going to sacrifice part of my relationship with you so that we can find Charlie and Claire faster?
Oh, maybe. Maybe that's the connection we were looking for.
It's like, we're really reaching, but it could be sort of a connection.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I never thought about it that way.
I don't know if Jack is actually thinking about it that way. I'm sure he's not, but
right.
Like, that's essentially what he's doing.
Yeah. It's so sad.
Yeah. I mean, this whole scene it's stressful and it's depressing. And when Jack signs that paper, I'm just like, oh, I get it, dude. That has to be really hard. I mean, you can see it, like, on a dime, he changes his tactic and he's like, oh, okay, so this is not working. I need to start, like, complimenting him, and that's what's gonna work.
Right. I was just gonna say, his reasoning behind it, Jack's father is like, oh, I've saved so many lives, so that makes up for the fact that I killed this one person, right? Right, Jack? It's like, no. No.
I know. And it's disturbing to think that this could have happened before and maybe Jack just wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw him drinking when Jack was 12 years old. So we know that this has been happening a long time.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It makes me think that Jack's lucky he's as not messed up as he is as a human being if he's dealt with this kind of abuse for years and years and years.
Right.
Like, just the fact that his dad says, you know, sorry we had such a shitty relationship, but thousands of people are alive because of me, so that's fine, right? Like, what? Ugh, I don't know.
I find it fascinating how well Christian knows him, though.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what Jack needs. He knows that all Jack wants is his approval.
Mm-hmm.
So if he just gives him that, he'll do whatever he wants.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's just the worst.
At the caves, Sawyer wakes Saeed and says it looks like he got his karmic retribution, and that this could be his opportunity to take a shot at Saeed while he's down. Saeed tells him that if he wants to go for it. He's ashamed of what he did to Sawyer, and he never intended to return to camp because of it. He tells him about Rousseau, and when Sawyer asks if he believes her story, Saeed says, maybe, maybe not, and describes the voices that he heard in the jungle. When Sawyer asks what they were, Saeed tells him he knows he doesn't have the answer to that. They look at each other, and they seem to have some sort of an understanding. Sawyer stands up and tells Saeed that the tide's coming in closer to the beach lately, and could reach the plain. Oh, and he's been keeping Saeed's signal fire burning for him. This is so fascinating, and I kind of love my two favorite dudes getting along.
Are these your two favorite dudes?
They kind of are. With Locke, they're my three favorite dudes.
Yeah.
I like this scene a lot. I like Saeed just being so very open and honest here, saying that he's sorry, that he was ashamed of what he did. And Sawyer just kind of accepting that, and now the two of them seem good.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy after what they went through a couple episodes ago.
I know. I mean, my husband tells me this is the way men are, but I don't understand it. I'm a grudge holder.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, when I was watching this, I was thinking Sawyer was going to be a lot worse. Like he was going to hit Saeed or something, but I feel like the fact that, like you said, Saeed's just being so honest and he says he's sorry. And then I feel like Sawyer, in the back of his mind, he knows that he kind of brought this on himself, that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both seeing that they played a part in something terrible.
Right.
And they're just gonna let it go now.
Right. I count this as growth for Sawyer. Like,
yeah,
I feel like this is good for him.
Definitely. And I think it's nice that final line where we find out that Sawyer's been keeping Saeed's signal fire burning for him.
Yeah.
Because that happened before Saeed even apologized.
That's a good point. Who is this Sawyer? I don't understand where he came from.
He's amazing, Randi.
I mean, let's not get carried away, but yeah,
He's amazingly complex.
Yeah, that is very true.
There's just so many little things that he drops here and there that make you kind of wonder about him. He can't be that bad a guy if he is keeping Saeed's fire burning for him when Saeed just like tortured him.
Yeah, but it's like, where was this guy in Confidence Man when he was lying to everyone about Shannon's inhalers? Where
Randi,
was this
How many
guy?
times must we discuss this?
Yeah, let's not do this again. Oh, God. No, I like this Sawyer. I like this scene. I feel like he's growing as a human being, so
Yes.
I'm on board.
Yeah, and I feel like for the last few episodes, there hasn't been a lot of Sawyer since Confidence Man,
Mm-hmm.
but every time we've seen him, he's been doing nice things.
Yeah.
He gave the manifest to Hurley, and he's doing this, and he was on the golf course hanging out with everybody. So he's definitely taking his little steps.
Yeah, this was the step I was hoping he would take in Confidence Man, so I like that we're getting to see it slowly but surely.
Right. It's a good scene. Hurley and Walt are playing backgammon on the beach, and as you might expect, Walt is crushing. We learn, though, that Hurley used to be a backgammon tournament champion, 17th place, and he is very good. So, like, Walt is clearly a genius. But as he continues rolling and gets exactly the rolls he wants, he tells Hurley that his other dad, Ryan, told him he's the luckiest person he's ever known. And now Hurley owes Walt $20,000. This scene is fun, too.
Yeah.
Walt has a lot of great scenes in this episode.
He does. He does a great job.
Yeah. This is so... It's hard to talk about this scene because I want to talk about things that might happen in the future.
Same here.
But in not doing that, I think it's interesting how Walt is... Like, they don't... When I watch this scene, my first instinct is, Walt must be really smart. And then when you find out that Hurley is amazing at this game, and Walt says he's just really, really lucky, it feels, slightly mystical, like magical.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like we're introducing more of those elements with, you know, the whispers Saeed heard in the jungle, and
Yes.
the whole thing with Ethan. That's maybe not very mystical, but it's, you know, mysterious and creepy. It's just all these little things are starting to pop up.
Right. Yeah. I love that kind of stuff. I find it super intriguing.
Yeah, it's not what I come to Lost for, but it is interesting.
It's one of their little, Easter egg is not the right word. I don't know what the word is. It's just like a little hint of what could be happening on this island. Boone and Locke have lost their trail, but they're following Locke's gut at this point. Boone tells Locke about his mother's wedding business that he helps run. Locke stops them, telling Boone that it's going to rain in 1 minute, and he should go back to camp since the trail's gone cold and it's going to be dark soon. Boone will not head back, though, and Locke seems to respect him for it. The rain begins to pour down, and Locke smiles joyfully up at it. God, I love him. He's so great.
I know.
I love all these scenes where he just, like, embraces the weather.
Yeah, they're great. I wrote down in my notes, I was like, that's one of Tiffany's favorite things. Locke and rain.
It's just so funny. He is so one with this island that even the bad parts of it, like when the rain starts pouring and something bad is about to happen, which always seems to happen when it rains, Locke is just in it. He doesn't care.
Yeah, that's so true. Even the way, I mean, there's such a difference with Locke and Boone who are tracking Ethan to Kate and Jack. Like, Kate and Jack are frantic, running the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, Jack is. Kate's falling or whatever. But, Locke is just, like, taking a stroll, kind of, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
Just happy to
They
be
are
out.
a good contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's happy to be exploring the islands more.
Right.
Seeing some trees he hasn't seen lately.
Exactly. He's just chilling. It's funny.
Kate and Jack are not enjoying the rain quite so much. Jack hears screaming and he takes off in the direction of it. Kate hears nothing, but follows Jack anyway up a muddy cliff. Eventually, Jack falls to the bottom. Ethan stands over him and tells him that if he doesn't stop following them, he will kill one of them. Jack begins punching Ethan, but Ethan disables him pretty easily and tells him that there will be no more warnings. And, ooh, the scene is super creepy.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Ethan is just super creepy.
Right.
And the way he just appears over Jack. Ugh.
Yeah, it's nightmarish.
And I find it really interesting that he hears the screams and Kate doesn't.
Right, because they clearly play it in the episode. And you're right, Kate seems to have no idea what Jack's talking about.
Yeah. And it sounds like Claire.
Yeah. I find that strange. I don't know what to make of that.
It's another piece of the mystical puzzle, I think. Because I don't see why that would happen.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I mean, in Jack's last episode, he was hearing things too.
Yeah, good point. That's the theme for this episode. Jack hearing things that aren't really there.
Or are they?
Yeah, I know.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, also, like you were just saying, the contrast between Locke and Boone and Jack and Kate. Like, just watching Jack and Kate try and crawl their way up this muddy hill is exhausting.
I know. They're like struggling and sweating and and you know that if we like switched to Locke and Boone doing the same thing, they'd be like laughing and joking.
Yeah, talking about Star Trek or whatever else.
Locke would throw up some cool hook and just like pull them up magically to the top of the cliff.
Exactly.
It'd be no big deal at all.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Back in the hospital, Jack sees Christian talking with the dead patient's husband, who is apparently threatening to sue. Christian is offering his condolences as Jack watches on. Kate has found Jack, and he tells her that Ethan was here. She says they need to stop looking. The rain has washed away the trail. But Jack charges forward, saying he won't let him do this. And the way he says that, it makes me want to connect that to his father, not Ethan.
Right. Because after he says that, it goes right into that flashback. So yeah, I wrote that down too. I wasn't really sure what to make of that. Because he puts so much emphasis when he says, I'm not letting him do this, not again.
Right. It seems to me like kind of this desperate ploy to pull these two stories together that don't really go together.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could kind of compare Ethan and Jack's dad, Christian. I mean, they're both the bad guys in each of these stories, so I guess you could kind of connect them that way. But that's about as far as I could take that, I think.
Yeah, that's about it. They're both antagonistic, but they're not doing similar things at all.
Very true.
Jack and his father are in a board meeting discussing the events that transpired in the OR. Jack learns for the first time that the patient had been pregnant. Jack says he needs to revise his statement, and he describes the events as he saw them. So, this is the scene where Jack kind of points the finger at his father.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Matthew Fox handled this amazingly well. I thought he was really good in this scene. I know I've complained about him before, so I needed to, like, disclaim that I thought there was some really good acting in this scene.
That makes me happy. Yeah, I think he does amazing in this episode, but, you know, I like him, so.
I mean, the difficulty of doing that is, I can't even imagine doing that, like, to my father.
Right.
Like, knowing that you are ending his career and everything that he cares about.
Right. It's such a brave thing to do, especially after the years of abuse. Yeah, and like you said, he's ending his career, and they work together. So, yeah, I admire this, that he stood up and did this.
I do too. Is there any argument that he shouldn't have done it?
No.
Okay.
Did you have an argument for that?
I mean, I do. I don't believe it, but I always have an argument for either way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could make an argument, but...
I mean, the argument is that by doing this, you know, Christian can't help other people. And while this is tragic and horrible, you know, clearly he does save more people than he hurts, but we don't know how many people he's hurt in the past.
Right, and this patient died, so that's, you know, pretty serious.
Yes, but Christian is right. Accidents happen in surgery all the time, of any kind.
Yeah, but...
Like if Jack had just slipped and he, like, made an accident, like, we would not be having this conversation.
Right, but I mean, it's different though. It's the intent. Like, he's purposely going out during his lunch breaks and drinking, or, you know.
Right. Yep. I mean, I agree. I don't think there's...
I'm sorry, I can't make the argument for the other side for this.
No, I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I like that you did that.
I did think that the pregnancy thing was a little heavy-handed. I don't think she needed to be pregnant to drive this point home, you know?
Yeah, and that seems to be at least one of the things that makes Jack finally stand up and tell them what really happened.
Right.
She's just I kind of wish he'd almost come to that decision without that being thrown in there, but...
Yeah, because it shouldn't have mattered. Like, it matters, but, you know, it mattered before.
Yeah, that shouldn't have been the deciding factor for him.
Right.
But yeah. Yeah, Matthew Fox does great in this scene and in this whole episode, in my opinion. I feel like you're not having the reactions I thought you were going to have when we start talking about this episode.
Really?
Yeah, I mean...
in a good way or bad way?
No, in a good way. I feel like I was really prepared for you to just hate every part of it, but...
Again, it's not really a problem with the episode. It's just a problem with this character that's a fundamental problem that I always have. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think this episode really focuses on the part of Jack that I don't like. So...
Yeah. I get it.
Oh, I read this online, so I'm not going to take credit for this idea. But I thought it was an interesting question. Do you think that Jack is outing his father because it's the right thing to do, or because this is like the ultimate victory over his father?
The ultimate victory?
Yeah, like in terms of competence. This is him publicly demonstrating that he is better.
Oh, what an interesting idea.
Yeah, I know. I read this and was like, whoa.
Wow.
And as interesting as that thought is, I still think that Jack is so rooted in his morality and what he thinks is right or wrong that I feel like that is going to be more important to him than being better than his dad. Yeah. But they clearly have like this tense competitive thing between the two of them. So, I mean, I think it's a valid thought.
Yeah, I think so too. Because, I mean, it's like you said, I think the main reason is that he has to do the right thing because that's a fundamental characteristic of his. Yeah. But, I mean, his dad has been telling him since he was a kid, like, you don't have what it takes to do this. So I can definitely understand if a little part of him wanted to finally show his dad that, no, I do have what it takes and I'm a better person than you are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of the confusion for Jack and maybe like why it takes him so long to come to this final conclusion is that in one regard, it's the right thing to end his dad's career because that's what's better for like the safety of the patients in the hospital. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, maybe he feels like the right thing could be to protect his father. Like he's his family. So he feels some sort of loyalty there. So
yeah, which is
I can see the conflict. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially when it's, you know, like a father figure who he's clearly his role model to like bring down your role model that way. That would be very hard.
Right. Like I'm trying to put myself in this situation. If I could ever do that to one of my parents, even if they were being awful like this. And I don't know if I could. It would be so hard.
Yeah, it really would. Kate and Jack are walking when they stumble upon Charlie hanging from a tree by a noose. It is a super disturbing sight. Jack grabs Charlie and Kate climbs the tree to cut him down. He's not breathing and Jack begins CPR. Kate holds Charlie's hand and she begins to cry as it seems that Jack's not going to be able to revive him. Like in the OR, Jack is being told to stop as he beats Charlie's chest over and over despite Kate's protests. That lost orchestra music rises and you have all the feels when Jack stops trying. Suddenly, he changes his mind and he begins smacking Charlie's chest again. Suddenly, Charlie breathes and everything is okay again.
This scene is unbelievable.
It is so stressful.
It is. And it makes me cry every time I watch it. Every single time.
That music is killer.
It is. Because that's like the death music, the emotional music. Like, you know it's all over when that starts playing.
It's so good. It's so powerful. And seeing Charlie hanging from that tree, Like, that image, I just find it so disturbing.
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
Like, in a show that is, it's dramatic, but it's not usually, like, grotesque. I mean, it's, you know, primetime TV.
Right.
So it's not like we're watching Game of Thrones or something. But, this just feels very abrupt and startling.
Yeah, it is startling.
And for it to be Charlie.
I know.
Who we love so much.
That's the thing. Ugh, it's awful. And then when Jack, I mean, he spends so long hitting him on the chest over and over again. It feels like it lasts hours. It's awful. Oh, it's such a well done scene.
Yeah, it's pretty much perfect.
Yeah, like when I think about this episode, this is the scene that I remember.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like the emotional payoff for the episode. Everything that Jack has been doing up to this point, it's like, oh, but he saved Charlie just through almost sheer determination.
Yeah, but Ethan only hanged him because Jack continued following him after he told him to stop. So I feel mixed feelings about this.
I would argue that Ethan is a lunatic and might have just killed Charlie anyway.
But we don't know that. All he's doing is exactly what he said he was going to do.
Right, but Ethan, I mean, what was Jack supposed to do? Just turn around and go home? Be like, sorry, Ethan, the crazy person who took Charlie and Claire, told me to leave, so we did. Like, that would have been, can you imagine? No.
It's a hard decision. I'm not saying it's not. But, I mean, that happens, you know? Like, you have to weigh that. And I don't feel like he even told Kate that had happened at all.
I mean, why would he?
Because he threatened to kill somebody.
Right,
That's
but
like a huge deal.
Yeah, but Ethan is crazy. Like, they were going to keep going anyway.
No, he's crazy.
What are you talking about? They don't know he's crazy.
They know he's evil. And so if they know that he's been doing all this wrong stuff, I'd be like, okay, he might actually murder him. What are we going to do?
What were their options at that point? What if he had told Kate what Ethan had said, what would they have talked about? What decision could they have come to other than to keep going?
They could have regrouped with Locke and sent Locke in on a super top secret expedition.
No, that's ridiculous. That would never worked.
I have more faith in that working.
But they were right there. I mean, Ethan was right there. They were right behind him. That wouldn't make any sense for them to, first of all, go back and find Locke wherever he is and try to come up with a plan. Ethan would have been long gone by then.
I mean, it's totally justifiable that he did this, like, to continue chasing him. Like, I get it. It does make sense. I just have mixed feelings because I do feel like he kind of brought that upon them, too.
I disagree. I mean, if they had been in a room and Ethan had been holding a gun to Charlie and Claire and Jack and Kate had come upon them and Ethan was like, if you do not turn around right now, I'm going to shoot one of them, that would have been different. And like, Jack had attacked him. But as
I don't feel like that's any different.
No, it is, because as far as I know, Ethan doesn't have any weapons. And I mean, when you're tracking someone who, I mean, Ethan is crazy. Like, from all of Claire's recollections of when he's been coming out with her with needles and the fact that he was on this island, like, they have to assume he's out of his mind. He just attacked Jack. There are no other options but to keep going and try and save them. Like, Jack and Kate are their only hope right now. Locke and Boone are on a completely different path. They're the only thing that can save Charlie and Claire. They had to keep going. They had no other choice.
I guess.
Really? Okay.
I don't think it's super black and white. I think ultimately, yeah, you might keep going. Like, if Charlie had died here,
that wouldn't have been Jack's fault.
Jack certainly would have thought it was.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it would have been exactly like with Claire. Claire said, someone's attacking me. Jack ignored her. Ethan said, I will kill one of them. Jack ignored him.
Yeah, but that's like Jack's own internal issues.
I mean, partially, but it's also true. All those things did happen. Only Jack managed to save Charlie.
Yeah, but I mean, how do you know that Ethan hadn't already strung Charlie up, but like before he even attacked Jack? Charlie says at the end of the episode, all Ethan wanted was Claire. So Ethan could have been planning on killing Charlie that whole time no matter what. Like, you can't, I feel like when you're dealing with someone as crazy and violent as Ethan, you can't take them at their word. Like, you don't know what they're gonna do.
I guess that's true. I still just have mixed feelings.
I'm just trying to imagine an episode where they would have regrouped with Locke and sent him on a secret mission.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, Jack would never have freaking done that in a million years.
I'm just trying to imagine myself watching that. I've been like, what is happening? Why are we doing this?
But you know what I could see is him saying, I'm going to keep going. Kate, go get Locke. You know? I could see that, because especially now that they know they're on the right track, or right trail.
Go get Locke to come and help them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I think we're getting wildly off topic. I think that...
I mean, I don't think so, but okay. So you watch the scene and you think it's lucky that Jack saved Charlie, because this is kind of his fault that Charlie was even up in this tree in the first place.
Yes and no. Like, I don't completely feel like that, but a little bit. And I feel like Jack would certainly have felt that way. Mm-hmm. So it's like super lucky for him that he was able to save him. I mean, this whole scene it's beautiful and I love it exactly as it is. I wouldn't change anything about it, but I do feel like, I don't know. I feel like I'm repeating myself, so.
No, you're fine. I feel like I got a little too emotional there. Maybe I shouldn't. I feel like I was yelling at you. I didn't mean to.
No, you weren't.
Okay.
No, I'm just trying to like rephrase what I'm saying so that it like maybe it doesn't sound as psychotic.
No, it didn't sound psychotic. It's just hard for me to understand.
Cause I don't feel like Jack would have done anything different or that even that he should have, but there's clearly the implication that if he just hadn't continued, Charlie might have not been hanged. You know, that might have not happened.
I mean, I can see how it's implied. I just don't believe that of Ethan. I don't believe that he wouldn't have just killed Charlie anyway, or that Charlie was already dead.
Right. Yeah, I don't feel like I know Ethan enough at this point to know, like, what's going on, really.
Oh, I feel like I know everything I need to know about Ethan. He's insane.
That's exactly what Jack said. Maybe you guys do have a lot in common.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can't give a guy like that any chances. He's showed his true colors already. Right. No, we're done.
At the caves, we learn that Charlie hasn't spoken since they returned. Jack promises Charlie that they will look for Claire in the morning, but he wants to know what Charlie knows. Charlie says he saw nothing, heard nothing. He doesn't remember anything, except that all they wanted was Claire. Shannon is upset that Boone and Locke aren't back yet. Her vulnerability is, like, super adorable in this scene.
Yeah, it is.
She's like, where's Boone? Do you believe Charlie that he doesn't remember anything?
Yes, I do. Because I feel like knowing what we know about how he feels about Claire, if he remembered anything significant, he would say it. But it is so frustrating when he says that.
I wasn't frustrated. I thought maybe Ethan scared him and told him that if he told anybody anything, he would hurt Claire.
Ooh, I've never thought about that before.
So he could just be trying to protect her by saying nothing. Because the thing that makes me think that is him saying, I saw nothing, I heard nothing, I don't remember anything. All they wanted was Claire. Like, why would he say that?
Ooh, I kind of like that. Because that's always made me a little bit, it seems almost like a cop-out of like, oh, we don't have to explain anything in this episode because we want to save that reveal or whatever till later. But if Charlie's intentionally not saying anything to protect Claire, oh, I really like that. I never thought about that before.
Yeah. See, like, not to go back to it, but this reminds me of Ethan telling Jack, like, if you keep going, I will kill one of them. Mm-hmm. Charlie could be, like, believing that threat from Ethan and being like, okay, I'm not pursuing that.
Yeah, and I mean, he's the one who got attacked by Ethan. Spent more time with him.
He would know more like what he's capable of.
Exactly. And he's the one who got hung up in a tree by Ethan, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
At this point, you really know what he's capable of.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Locke and Boone are still going through the jungle. Boone forgets what show he's on, and he asks Locke if they're lost. Locke says no and asks Boone, don't you feel it? Boone says, feel what? And Locke says, it. Boone wants to head back, so Locke tosses him a flashlight. But it falls and it hits a piece of steel with a thud, clearing away some brush and some mud. Locke looks completely delighted. Boone asks what they found, and Locke says that's what they're going to find out. End episode.
I mean, damn. What an ending.
If anything's going to get slightly sort of maybe resolved, they're going to open another door.
Yep, that's Lost. That's what they do.
But I so love it. I mean, this moment is the beginning of one of my favorite storylines in the entire show.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And it takes a while, but this is the beginning.
Yeah, it does. It takes a long while. But yeah, it's like they're juggling, this show is juggling so many things now. You've got Rousseau and what she told Saeed and the whispers and then Ethan and then they find this mysterious door. It's like, so there's so much going on right now. And Claire's still missing. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's all of this on top of these incredibly complicated characters.
Right.
With incredibly complicated backstories. There's just so many balls in the air at all times.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like they usually juggle them very well. It's well done.
Very. What do you feel like Locke is referring to when he's like, don't you feel it? It?
I mean, whoever knows what Locke is referring to? Like the power of the island? I don't know. I feel like he's ascended to this higher plane and that's where he's living and everyone else is just below him. Like, what are you talking about?
Do you like this about Locke?
I like it and I don't like it. Like there are times, and I can't think of specific examples, but there are times when I'm really into it and there are times where I'm just like, come on, just please stop.
So far, not thinking of anything in the future. Do you feel like you come down on one side of that? Or are you still just like kind of in the middle?
I feel like I'm kind of in the middle, but more on like leaning toward the good side of him. Like I like Locke at this point. And it is so hard for me to watch really any character on the show and not think about what's coming and not judge them for it, preemptively. Yeah. But no, at this point, I like Locke. I don't really get when he says things like this, which he says them all the time, I feel like, but I'm like, okay, you're doing your thing. Your backstory is crazy. So I get it,
Yeah. I mean, whose backstory isn't crazy?
Oh, good point.
But yeah.
I mean, what do you think he means when he says that?
Oh, what you said, basically. Whatever the magic of this island is.
Right.
I mean, he's clearly drawn to something, which is interesting. I feel like he's almost being led to this thing that they found, which is kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah, I tend to struggle with Locke more because his whole mysticism and complete faith in the island, I don't find very relatable.
Right.
Like, I find, characters like Jack so much more relatable. Locke is harder for me to understand his motives.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting because, like, I love Locke. I am completely delighted by him pretty much all the time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he annoys me, but 90% of the time, I just think he's wonderful.
Wow.
And then my frustration with Jack, I find him very mundane and ordinary. I feel like Jack could be on any show. Like, he's not like an extraordinary character to me. And I think that's kind of why I'm not so drawn to him, but I'm drawn to someone like Locke, who is totally like, I've never seen another character like this and I don't know what he's doing here. And I feel like that's kind of why we're drawn to the people we're drawn to. Like, you find Jack really relatable, right, which makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, yeah, he is relatable, which is why I have no time for him. I want to hear about like other people who are not so relatable.
Right. That's so interesting that like you would be drawn to that, but then I'm drawn to people like Jack because I feel a connection with it and I want more of that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Because I would rather see a story that I don't know how it's going to go. And I feel like Jack's like kind of a normal story as far as backstories go. Mm-hmm. we're learning so much about ourselves
I
by
know.
doing this podcast.
This is like therapy. It's great.
We should have done this, 12 years ago when this started.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm gonna make you answer this because I don't know if what I thought of is very good at all. I don't think it is. But what was your kind of thematic pull from this episode?
Okay. Well, I don't know if what I wrote really makes sense either. The question or theme, I don't really know if this is a theme that I wrote down, is kind of what we've been talking about the whole time, about guilt. And it kind of made me think the show is trying to say that guilt can it can drive you to do both good and bad things. Guilt, like Jack's obviously dealing with guilt throughout this whole episode. It makes him lash out at Kate and Locke. And then he also goes off by himself, to try and find Charlie and Claire, which isn't a good idea. But I feel like you can argue that guilt also, it helps him, it makes him determined to keep going after Charlie and helps him save him in the end. And then, obviously in his flashbacks, I feel like you could argue that guilt kind of leads him to make the right decision about his dad and to, end his career by telling everyone the truth.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I
That is so good. That's so much better than what I thought of. And, continuing with that, Sawyer and Saeed's scene, I feel like they're both kind of wrestling with guilt, too, over how they treated each other.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, yours is way better.
But yeah, that makes me, I feel when I look at Jack, I feel like I react some of the same ways when I'm guilty. So that's one of the reasons why I really like this episode. But
yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And Locke is dealing with guilt too.
Yeah.
He mentions that when they start off.
Yeah, that's true.
Boom. Nailed it. So, I'll tell you what mine is.
Yes,
just
please.
Not to be a cop-out or anything. Mine was about persistence, because I feel like that's kind of Jack's thing, is persistence. Mm-hmm. But I had so much, it was so hard to connect that to his backstory. Yeah. Because I feel like if anything, the persistence in that story was Christian. Mm-hmm. As he hit Jack over the head with a hammer a million times. But yeah, I felt like Jack's persistence is kind of what helped him find Charlie in the end, but I don't think he went about it in the right way. So I don't know how to take that, because it did work, but I don't think it would have worked if someone else hadn't guided him, So it's I don't feel like persistence is enough, but the show kind of implies that it is. I just don't know if I agree with that.
Are you saying the show is implying that if you have enough persistence, things will work out in the end?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's what the show is saying. Because, he finds Charlie and then he hits him so many times to bring him back to life. So.
Yeah, I can see that. I think, in my opinion, it's a little bit more than persistence. But yeah, no, that's definitely all throughout this episode.
Not all throughout. Guilt is all throughout, because that is way better. I really like that.
Yeah. But I think one of the reasons why, because I had trouble coming up with that as well. When I finally did, I felt like I had a light bulb had gone off in my head. Because I was literally about to just write a question mark and be like, I don't know. But
yeah, we texted before this about how both of us were really struggling to find one for this episode.
Yeah, and you know how I struggle normally. But yeah, my one complaint with this episode would be I like the scenes in Jack's flashbacks, but they don't really connect as strongly as I would like them to. So that's probably the reason why we both had so much trouble, because it's just not as good as it could have been, Yeah,
definitely. And I feel like we always have the A story, which is, the character of the week and what he's doing on the island. Mm-hmm. And then we've got the B story, which could be Hurley in the golf course, something like that. And in this episode, there's not a straight B story person, really. Maybe Locke, I guess?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of a different structure this week.
Right. So it's like, normally I can connect those two stories with a theme or the flashback and the main character, or all three if it's an amazing episode like The Moth or something.
Right.
But yeah, in this episode, it's just really hard to connect any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I looked up names.
Okay.
Now for your daily dose of name trivia.
I love this part.
And I mean, we already kind of talked about Christian Shepherd in Jack's last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so this time I was like, well, let me read about Jack. What do you think? But we talked about how shepherd means like a guide or a protective force, which Jack definitely is that. At least protective. I don't know if he's quite to the level of guide yet. But I just wanted to like mention that Jack is kind of your traditional everyman character name.
Yeah, very true.
It's like the character, the name of the guy who you're supposed to relate with, which is so interesting because I wrote this before you told me that you related with him. But if you look up like the meaning of the word Jack, it says any man. So he's like literally the everyman archetype.
Yeah, I get that. I connect with him.
And there are so many stories where you've got like the main character, Jack, and like Jack is the good guy. Like you just kind of always know Jack's the good guy.
Yeah. Which I like that about him. But I will say I can completely understand why you would look at him and think, he's the good guy. This is boring. I'm over this. I want to see someone like Sawyer who's so complex, or Locke who's so different. I get that. Like, I don't feel that way about Jack, but I can completely understand why you or people who don't like Jack feel that way.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it's a mix of that and like this episode where I just don't like the way he handles things. I don't like the way he goes about it. And I can see that it's rooted in wanting to save Charlie and Claire, but that doesn't excuse the bad behavior. Like, it just bugs me.
Yeah.
Like, you're just getting in your own way at this point. You're making it harder for everybody to, get the job done.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, this is where we stand on Jack.
So how do you feel now that we've gone through the whole episode? Do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Or do you feel the same?
I think I feel kind of the same, but I feel like I understand why you like him better.
Okay.
Like, at least it makes sense to me that you have like some sort of personal connection with him. And I think a lot of people do. I don't think that's unusual. I mean, like we just said, he's the everyman archetype. I think he's supposed to be relatable.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. I'm trying to like not be super hateful.
No, you haven't been hateful at all. Like I said,
good.
I thought this episode was going to end and you were just going to be so upset that that you had been forced to watch it and take notes. But no.
I am. I'm very upset.
Okay.
I have to cleanse myself with 10 Sawyer episodes for every Jack one. I'm just kidding.
No. But yeah, I'll say it again. I love this. Well, I really, really like this episode. I think it's really good. I enjoy Jack a lot, like we've already said. I feel like he's relatable. Some of the things he does, I don't agree with and I don't like, but I get it. And I feel like all the acting in this episode from Matthew Fox, Evangeline Lilly, who is also great. We didn't really even talk about what she was doing in that scene when Jack was trying to revive Charlie.
Breaking your heart is what she was doing.
She was fantastic.
She's incredible.
Yeah. Like, even the small scenes we get with Sawyer and Saeed and Walt, like, everyone is on their A game as far as acting goes in this episode. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, very rarely does acting bother me on this show. Like,
that's a good point.
They're great. I don't think that this is like a great episode. I don't think it's horrible. It's just kind of blah. I think I'd like it better if it was tied together a little more. And it's Jack, so I'm never going to think super highly on it. But it's not just because of him. I just think that overall the episode could have been crafted a little tighter.
Even that ending scene with Charlie being revived, does it make you bring it up a little bit more?
It does. That's a great scene, and I do really love that scene. Mm-hmm. That just doesn't redeem, like, the overall problem I have with it.
Right.
Because it feels like a big problem to me. Like, it's glaring.
Okay.
Because every other episode, it made so much sense. Like, when I see a character's flashbacks, I feel like that character's thinking about this stuff as it's happening.
Right. That's so true.
And it should make sense for them to be thinking about it. And in this episode, it doesn't really make much sense for Jack to be thinking about this issue while he's looking for Charlie and Claire.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's like my one problem with this episode. They could have connected it just a little bit more. It would have been better.
That's the episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to continue the conversation with us, get in touch through our emails, Randi at The Lost Podcast or Tiffany at The Lost Podcast. And you can also find us on Instagram. We'd also really super appreciate if you would head over to iTunes, even if that's not where you listen to us, because sadly that is still the way most people find podcasts. So we really need your help over there. Rate, review, subscribe to us on iTunes, and we will be eternally thankful.
Yes, absolutely.
And I wanted to do like a big shout out to the people who have given us reviews on iTunes, because they make me so happy. So thank you to Tiny Raptor, Martin BRTJ, and Desmond James Shepherd, which is a lovely name.
That is a lovely name.
Yeah. You guys are the best. You rock.
Yes, thank you so much. We super appreciate it.
Tune in next week for whatever the case may be, where we get back to Kate's story and see what's going on with her. I actually remember this episode, Randi.
Do you?
Or at least part of it.
I do too, and I have to tell you, it's not one of my favorite ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how I feel about it. I just kind of remember what goes on with Kate.
Yeah.
I don't remember what else happens.
We'll see. Maybe I'll feel differently after I watch it again.
Maybe. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Randi.
And this has been Freckles and Blondie.